We're live! We did it, everyone! Hello, everyone, and welcome to One More Page Books, the virtual space. I'm Amanda. I'm going to be your sort of host for the evening, and I am so delighted to welcome Lizzy Mason and Breeana Shields to celebrate the launch of Breeana's new amazing book. Welcome, you two.
Thank you.
So don't worry to everyone watching, I will be out of your hair shortly. You won't have to see me taking up sort of a third of the video soon. But first, before I go, I'm going to introduce our lovely ladies for the evening. I'll start with Lizzy. So Lizzy Mason grew up in Northern Virginia before moving to New York City for college and a career in publishing. Now back in Virginia with her two cats. When not reading or writing, Lizzy loves to travel. Probably less now than usual, but back to it again soon, I'm sure. She's visited 44 states and 11 countries so far.
I'm up to 45 now.
Ooh, 45! Oh my gosh, we have to update the website. She's the author of several amazing books and a virtual round of applause for Lizzy Mason. Ooh, ah. And then, of course, the woman of the hour, the amazing Breeana Shields, is the author of the Bone Charmer duology and the Poison's Kiss duology. She graduated from Brigham Young University with a BA in English, and when she's not writing, she loves reading, traveling, and playing board games with her extremely competitive family. We're going to have to talk about that at some point, Breeana, because I also am a huge board game nerd. She lives near DC with her husband, 3 children, and 2 adorable but spoiled dogs. And today we're here to celebrate her newest novel, The Splendor. So, yay, Breeana! Oh, there you got hold of the direction.
And my cat just meowed.
So, my one housekeeping note before I get out of here, feel free to comment, everyone who's watching. It'll pop in. I'll keep an eye on things, pop the buy link in the chat as much as I can before it gets annoying. Feel free to think up questions. Lizzy and Breeana will take those at the end of the evening, but get them formulating now. So that they can be, educated and well-informed. So you two have a great time, and I'll be here if you need anything.
Thanks,
Thank you.
Happy publication day, Breeana.
Thank you.
It's so exciting. I feel like I've been waiting for this book to come out for so long, and so you must feel like it's been forever.
Yes, it's so exciting. Thank you.
And look at that shiny cover. I can now see it behind you.
It catches the light. It's so pretty.
It's amazing. I love it so much. And I mean, I love not just the cover. The entire book is amazing from cover to cover. All right, I'll stop making jokes. Okay, so I feel like the natural first question, tell us about The Splendor. What is it about?
Sure. So The Splendor is about a magical hotel that provides its guests the fantasy fulfillment of their dreams. And the main character, Juliet, has dreamt of going there her whole entire childhood. She and her sister used to lay awake in the orphanage and dream about a day when they could go. So when her sister Claire turns 20, Juliet gives her a gift of a stay at the Splendor. But when Claire comes back, something about the relationship has changed, and Juliet's heartbroken and decides to go to the Splendor herself to figure out what happened. And when she gets there, she finds this glittering world full of wonder and fantasy, but also a dark underbelly, and she has a secret and a mystery to unravel.
Yeah, I was taken by surprise multiple times in this book. So yeah. So where did the inspiration for this story come from?
That's a good question. So my story, I think that inspiration comes from all kinds of places for me. Usually it's some tiny kernel of an idea that then combines with a bunch of other ideas. So the first kernel of this idea, it's kind of an embarrassing story, but I was flipping through channels on the TV trying to find something to watch, and The Bachelor was on, and it happened to be the episode where they're doing the overnight dates. And so Chris Harrison was saying, you can take this, you can stay in your own rooms, or you can take this key and stay in the fantasy suite. Well, I'm a fantasy author, and I don't hear that the way other people hear that. So I heard that, and my mind immediately went to magic instead of romance, and I thought, ooh, that would be so interesting if there were really like a fantasy suite. What would that look like? And then, of course, I wish an idea were a whole plot. It works that easily. But months later, of kind of brainstorming and combining that with different ideas. But that was the initial kernel.
You came up with some really creative signature experiences for the various guests in this hotel. What would you want your signature experience to be?
If I could have any fantasy, I think you'll relate to this since we both love to travel, but I would like to travel without the hassle of actually traveling. I would like to just snap my fingers and go from Paris to Rome to London and not have to lug suitcases or be on planes or have jet lag.
Yes.
So that's what I would do.
I love it. And yeah, I feel like I would have been to more countries if I could have done that.
Exactly.
States, maybe not so much. The ones I have yet to visit are ones that I'm like, maybe I don't need to get to Nebraska anytime. Maybe I'm missing out, though. Who knows?
What fantasy would you want, Lizzy?
Oh, that's such a good question. I mean, I feel like it would probably involve travel. And I would want to be able to do like all the things in one city in a time period that you can't necessarily do when you're there on your own dime, and like there are so many experiences in a foreign city that like I think I would love to have, but probably can't afford to do all of. So
right.
Or potentially there would be food involved. I feel usually just my fantasy in general is food. So. Okay, so the relationship in this book between Claire and Juliet is so beautiful, and I have an older sister, so I just really felt it really deeply. But of course, then it's also really heartbreaking when Claire doesn't really have that same relationship with her anymore. Do you have siblings, and did you, draw on your relationships with them? Are any of them watching? Do you think?
They better be watching. Yes, I do. I have 2 brothers and a sister, and definitely, I think that helped inform the relationship. I think your siblings, it's just a unique relationship in all the world. I feel like they share your childhood memories with you, and they get things about you at that age nobody else does. And so it's a really special relationship that's hard to duplicate with anybody else. So it definitely informed Juliet and Claire.
Good. This is sort of it's on topic, but non sequitur. I've been watching Downton Abbey because I'm 10 years behind the curve. And I was just watching it, and there's this scene where the two of the sisters say, like, we're the only ones who are going to remember our other sister pretty soon. And I was just like, yeah, that's so true. Like, you share these experiences with the people who lived in your house, lived in potentially in your room, and there's just no one else who knows you the way a sibling does. So I think that's why it's even more heartbreaking when Claire's just like, it's time for you to move out.
Right.
So how would you describe Juliet as a character? Like, is there a favorite thing about her personality that you put in?
Yeah, so I think she's a little bit headstrong and a little bit impulsive, but just unfailingly loyal. And that's my favorite thing. She'll go to the ends of the earth for the people she loves.
Yes.
Even though she doesn't always make the best choices.
I can't blame her for stealing their savings and going to the Splendor, though. I feel like that was the right choice.
Yeah. She had to know.
She had to know. So I keep wanting to call him Henry and Juliet.
Well, in my mind, he's Henri. I said Henry the other day because I have a child who makes fun of my French accent. His French accent. I'm going to anglicize it and avoid the mockery.
It's hilarious. All right, well,
in my mind.
as I read, I'm always like, Henri, and then I'm like, wait, is it Henry? So,
you got it right.
I'm going to say Henri. So Henri and Juliet both crave that feeling of being accepted and part of a family. Did that influence the way that you wrote their love story?
Yeah, completely. When you're crafting a love story, it's always, I'm not an expert at this. There are people that do it better, I'm sure, but all the romance writers out there. But you need the characters to have something that really keeps them apart. They're kind of at cross purposes, but also something really profound that brings them together. And I think that's the thing they both really see in each other and get about each other, that craving for family and connection.
Yeah, definitely. When you feel it so viscerally, especially with Henri, I feel like he has his parents with Stella and Theo, but it's like not quite the same. So when he and Juliet really come together and find each other, it's just so happy. And also sad in its way, but no spoilers. So the magic in this book is super creative. You've got like pastries that contain emotions and dreams that are created from thin air. How did you come up with the magic system in Splendor?
This is my favorite part about writing it. It was so fun to brainstorm different fantastical things that could happen and what kind of experiences I wanted. And so just a lot of brainstorming and just trying to be creative with it. But that was a really fun part of creating the world.
Yeah, I'm sure. I mean, I had such fun just reading the various experiences that the guests had. I was like, I want to be a trapeze artist. Okay, so this is also a super visual book. Did you have like mood boards or anything that you use? Do you use Pinterest or anything like that?
Yeah, for this one, I definitely did. I had a mood board on Pinterest, and I'd search the fanciest hotels around the world. Now I have a whole new list of places to travel. But yeah, so I have really great food on that board and fancy dresses and all kinds of luxury from different parts of the world.
What, now that you've mentioned it, what's your future hotel travel looking like?
I can't even pick one. There's so many just fabulous, and all of them just feel a little different and fancy in a different way. And I just want to go everywhere.
I totally understand. There's this series, I can't remember which streaming service it's on, but these three friends go to 3 different places in the same city. One is like a budget place, one is sort of middle of the road, and one is a super luxury place. And it's so fascinating to see like the different levels of types of accommodations that they find. And sometimes like the economical one is actually pretty great. So if I remember the name, I will put it in the comments. I'll mention it, or I'll send you an email. All right, so let's talk writing craft for a minute. Okay. What is your favorite writing tip, and how do you put it into practice while you're writing?
Yeah, so well, my number one tip for writers is to read a lot. I think writing classes are great, but I think that I learned more about how to write by reading a ton than by anything else. And I think when you're reading something you love, trying to figure out why you love it and what the author's doing that's working. Yeah, it's really helpful. And I just think it gets writing in your DNA in a way nothing else can. So that's one tip. And then another is remembering nothing's ever wasted. The Splendor, I actually reused. I wrote a book years ago that just it didn't make it, and really informed. I can't say it without spoilers, but it really informed a huge part of the Splendor, and so all that work wasn't wasted.
That is really good advice.
What about you? I always like to hear other people's.
I know. I mean, I always say like read as much as you can. So now I'm just echoing you, but that is usually my writing tip, because like not only do you learn things about like how to write dialogue, and ways to write a sentence where you're saying like I looked at so and so, but you can say like I noticed something about them instead of saying just I looked at them. But the other thing about reading is that I find that I get really inspired by reading other people's words. It makes me want to go home and write. I say go home because usually I'm reading or I'm listening while I'm like driving, or I used to read a lot while I was on the subway when I lived in New York. So yeah, I would be reading on the subway and I'd be so fired up to go home and write. And I'd get home and my husband would be like, "Can we have dinner?" And I'd be like, "No, I have to."
Being married to a writer is fun, right?
Yeah.
You feel like it kind of lights up the same area of my brain, reading and writing. It's the same. I don't know. It's almost the same feeling. So I totally get what you mean. When I read something really good, it makes me want to write. Yeah.
Well, yeah. I mean, there's like a little bit of a feeling of jealousy. Like I want to see my work, I never realized how competitive I am until I say things like that. So let's talk writing process. Are you a plotter or a pantser? Did you plot this book? How did it go?
So in my ideal world, I'm a pantser all the way. Editors don't like that. Later in your career, you have to learn to plot more and more. But in my heart, I'm a pantser. I like discovering things as I go. Usually I have like 5 or 6 turning points in mind that I'm kind of making my way towards. So I have some idea of what's going to happen, but I really enjoy discovering things along the way. What about you? Are you?
I started out as a pantser, and it went really well until I was like, oh wait, these books don't actually make any sense. So I wrote my first couple of books that way, and then I was like, okay, let me plot, and turns out that's much better for me. So now
do you seriously plot like every little thing outline kind of thing?
Well, I have. Are you familiar with John Truby's Anatomy of a Story?
Yes, I love it.
I use his system mostly to like come up with like the main theme and figure out what the characters' like wants and needs are and what's going to be the turning point and things like that. But I write really detailed synopses when I sell something on proposal. Like my last one was like 11 pages long. So.
See, I'm always like, to my agent, like, how long does it have to be? Like, for 2 pages. Like, how short can the synopsis be before I can just start?
Well, and then I often deviate from it anyway while I'm writing. Something will strike me. Like, people think it's crazy when authors say, like, my characters just do what they want to do. But they do. Like, sometimes they just have ideas about what they want to do.
Yep.
And it is not what I had in mind. Exactly. But I think that's really fun. I love that about writing, the way the characters surprise you. Was there anything in this book that took you by surprise that you can't say without a spoiler?
I think some of the signature experiences did, where I'd have something in mind and then some other thing kind of popped up. I mean, there are spoilery things I can't say, but yeah, I mean, it happens to me all the time, no matter how carefully I plot.
Yeah.
It always goes in a different direction. So, I think that's what I like about pantsing, and it works with outlining too, because they're still going to do what they're going to do.
It's true. So what do you do when you feel stuck while you're writing? I don't like to say writer's block because I feel like I know it's got a stigma attached to it.
Right. So it depends on why I'm stuck. Sometimes it's something I've taken a wrong turn and the story's just stuck. And so I kind of have to go backwards and figure out why it's stuck. And then sometimes it's just, you're just not feeling it that day. And so if I need to go backwards, I go backwards and unravel and kind of start in a new place. If I just need a break, I go for a walk, or read something, or listen to some music for a bit and try to come back.
Do you listen to music while you're writing?
I can't. I can listen to, I listen to often like instrumental things, but I can't listen to anything with lyrics. But I listen to things with lyrics for like to brainstorm a lot. That's really helpful. But for some, I just start listening to the music and the lyrics and my mind wanders and I can't focus.
Yeah, I'm just gonna sing along. No, I'm the same way. I used to be able to listen to music. Sometimes I'll just listen to the same song over and over, and that just helps me zone out. But yeah, no, I have the same problem. I used to be able to write with music, or even the TV. I would have like HGTV on in the background, and maybe my books are better written now because I don't do that anymore. I think
instrumental piano is really nice for writing for some reason, or listening to my daughter practice. That's always helpful.
Oh, that's fun.
Yeah, but lyrics, just I can't do it.
Yeah, now I get it. Do you have any like Spotify playlists or any? Do you listen to soundtracks from movies or anything like that?
I do a Spotify playlist for every book, just for inspiration, and kind of while I'm getting ready in the morning and getting ready to write, I'll listen to that over and over.
That's right.
And then once the writing starts, I turn on something instrumental. And do you make playlists?
It depends on the book. Sometimes I do. I really I should have for my last book because it was all about music, but I didn't for that one. I just it because the playlist is basically like my iTunes, so like what's on my phone. But for other people, I probably should. But no, I mean, I generally don't. I just go to whatever song I need to listen to. Or I've got some Tibetan singing bowls. That's several hours long. So that works out well. It feels like a meditation. It's very not distracting at all.
Right. Yeah.
So that sort of helps answer one of my next questions. I have a friend who lights a candle and she has a certain scent for each book that she writes, which I think is great.
Yeah.
How do you like get in the zone to get back into the mindset of your characters when you write?
Yeah, I do light a candle often. I close my office door. If it's like fall or winter, I'll turn on the little space heater in my office to make it extra cozy. And my dog curls up next to it and hogs the heat. But yeah, I need it to be quiet. And that was something about the pandemic that was with everybody home incredibly difficult, because I just need total quiet and I need space. It takes me a long time to kind of get going and get in the zone. So that's been really nice to have kids back in school and just have a little more space.
I get very jealous of people who are fast writers.
Me too.
I'm not one of them.
Really, really slow, painfully slow.
Yeah, I like to think that my first drafts are cleaner because of that.
Yeah, I agree. I think mine are too. I hope, maybe. That, but
But either of our editors are here. Let's not talk about it. Right. Don't call us out. So what do you love about writing for teens?
I absolutely love this age group because I feel like it's just that time in life. You're on the cusp of adulthood. They're mature. They know a lot about themselves, but also the whole world's open and anything's possible. And it's just kind of a magical time of life. It doesn't feel like that when you're in it, but it is. It's a really fun time where there's just so much possible and so much open-ended.
It's true. Your whole life ahead of you, hopefully. If all goes well.
Right.
No, I totally agree. One of the things I missed most during the pandemic was just getting to travel and do school visits and things like that. It's just not the same doing things virtually. But as much as I love, I love being able to be home. You guys can't tell, but I'm in my comfy pants.
Same. We call it pandemic chic around here. Like fancy on the top, jammies on the bottom.
I love it. It's my favorite thing about working from home.
Yeah, mine too.
The dress code. So if you could travel to any fictional world, it could be one of yours, but it could also just be any fictional world. Where would you go?
Oh man, it's hard because all the fantasy worlds I want to travel to, I'm really not brave enough to go. They're in deep peril. I have maybe I would go to Hogwarts early in the school year before everything goes down. Have a butterbeer in September.
Right. But yeah, you don't want to go to Middle Earth where there's wars raging.
No, yeah, they're just, I'm just too much of a wimp to actually want to travel anywhere. I talk a bigger game than I really have. So I'll say Hogwarts early in the year, or no, that's it. Yeah, everything's scary.
That's a very valid place. I know. I mean, I don't know. I feel like if I could stay at the Splendor and not have terrible things happen.
Yeah, I wrote it, and I don't know that I'd step foot in it really.
Yeah, it's tough. I feel like all the fantasy worlds that I love, terrible things happen because that's what authors do. We have to have plots. So.
Yeah, I know enough to. You just stay home and read.
Yeah, exactly. What are some of your favorite fantasies?
So many. Yeah, I love anything by Laini Taylor, anything by Holly Black. I love the whole genre. I'm not sure it'd be easier to talk about not favorites, but I won't do that. Yeah, but Laini Taylor's great. I love, she has that ability to write really well and plot really well. And I feel like that's not always in fantasy. Usually you have you're stronger at one than the other, and she's good at both.
Yeah.
So not fair.
I know, but she's also one who takes a really long time to write her drafts. And so that's always encouraging to me. I'm like,
yes.
If Laini takes a year and a half to write a book, then I don't feel so guilty when it takes me.
Writers unite, right?
Exactly. Did you grow up reading fantasy? Was that a genre you were introduced to early?
No, actually, I didn't read fantasy until college. I grew up reading almost everything else, and I don't know why I didn't discover fantasy. But I would read really widely. I would read YA things and children's books and Stephen King and parenting books that then I would obnoxiously point out that my parents weren't, the book did not say you should do it that way. I just read anything I could get my hands on. So I always loved to read, but I didn't didn't discover fantasy till college, and then I just completely fell in love.
That's so fascinating. I'm the same way. I didn't read fantasy growing up. Like I read, I think I read the first Lion, the Witch in the Wardrobe book. And maybe it's partly that fantasy wasn't as big when we were kids.
Right.
But like there weren't as many options. And they all felt a little old fashioned. But like I feel like I could have really gotten into like Tamora Pierce or I don't know. I've got multiple others that I'm sure I would have loved. Or like the what's it called? No, I can't remember. Anyway, but yeah, I was really into like contemporary stories, and so when I started reading fantasy, I was like, oh my gosh, this is what I've been missing all this time. Like, why didn't anyone tell me?
Exactly. That was my exact reaction too.
Yeah, I'm really a little mad about it. So, all right. Well, I've got a couple more questions for you, but if anyone wants to start putting some questions in the chat that they have for Breeana, sorry, I won't. Like now that you've said how you pronounce your name, I want to do it the other way. Yeah. Like I know you're Breeana. I've known you for a few years now. But okay, so what do you love most, or what did you love most about writing the Splendor?
It's a little different than anything I've written before, and I just loved just the luxury of it, and just really getting to be completely imaginative with the magic system.
Yeah.
Because anything is possible. So I felt like I could go in all kinds of different directions, and it was really fun. It was kind of a joy.
Nice. So. I noticed you write in third person, which I think is, I think it often works better in fantasy because you can be a little bit more fluid in the language. Right. Is that generally your preference? Like, or did you?
This is actually my first third person.
Yeah, I think so. I remember Bone Charmer being first.
First in all my other books, and it just felt right to do it this way, and which was fun. I always like to challenge myself and do something a little different in each book. So I really liked that, actually. I don't remember. I've read your books, but I don't remember. Are they first or? They
are first person. They're both past tense, which is usually kind of not, usually most things are first person present tense in YA. But yes, for some reason, I don't know, I write in past tense. But I feel like fantasy works really well in third person, especially when you have two different characters' points of view. But I also felt like Juliet and Henri both had really different points of view and had different voices, which is very hard to do. Did you have like certain words that you knew they both, or they would use specifically, or how did you like get into different mindsets for both of them?
That's a good question. I don't know. I didn't have any really trick to it. I just feel like you kind of have to know the characters really well.
Yeah, that's true.
It kind of comes naturally. Yeah.
And do you figure out what your characters are going to be like in advance? I mean, I know you have to plot it.
So for me, I know some writers have a character come to them first and they start there. So far I always have kind of the kernel of the idea first, and then as I'm creating the character, I kind of think about what personality traits and what kind of character would be most challenged by that situation. And so obviously both characters have things about the world that challenge them and that are especially hard for them, where they might not be as much for someone else.
Yeah, no, that's very true. Okay, so just to remind you people how you can ask questions. What do you hope that readers are going to love about the Splendor? Or do you hope they take away from it, if that's a better question?
Yeah, I just hope it's like total escapism and joy and fun. It's been a tough year for everybody, and I just love the idea of somebody staying up till late in the night reading it because they can't stop, or it just making someone's week a little better.
That really is the dream, you just like, I just want someone to love the words. What are some of your favorite recent reads is a question we've gotten.
I just finished a middle grade series, that Nevermore, which everyone's probably read but me. And it's just so clever and fun. The House in the Cerulean Sea was just like lovely and feel good. If you need something to if you just need a feel-good book, that was wonderful too. And then I read one that's not out yet, and now I'm blanking on the title. But if I think of it, I'll come back to that. So
I've been watching Downton Abbey since I mentioned that. What have you been binging lately? Anything good?
So I've been mostly busy and not binging anything in particular. You know what? We're watching as a family. We're watching Criminal Minds, which again I'm years and years behind on. But
yeah, me too.
Now I'm so terrified to take the dogs out after dark. So that's been really fun.
Oh, I love it. Have you watched Ted Lasso yet?
So good. I haven't watched the second season yet. We're waiting till our family's all together.
Nice. Yeah.
To watch it, but yeah,
it really holds up. I'm always skeptical about a second season when the first season is
good,
but it does. Yeah.
That one too. It kind of restores your faith in humanity.
It does. Yes. Can you tell us what you're working on now, or what's coming next, or is it still a secret?
It's a super secret project, but I'm having so much fun. I went a little younger with this one, and I just complete and total joy writing this one. I'm having tons of fun. So that's all you need to know.
I know that's such a hard part about being a writer, is like mostly we can't talk about what's coming unless it's announced, and things take really long time in publishing.
You have secrets for years, and it's
I know, it's so frustrating.
What are you working on? Do you have any secrets?
So we've announced my third book, so I can talk about that. It's called Remind Me to Hate You Later. And I write really sad contemporary YA. So
good, but so good.
This one is the saddest of the three so far. Just really saying something. It's about a girl. Well, so it's two girls' points of view. One of them is a girl whose mom is a mommy blogger and lifestyle influencer on Instagram. And she's basically been using her daughter her whole life for as fodder for her column. And the daughter is depressed and has depression and has spent her life really not living up to her mom's expectations. And this is not a spoiler because at the beginning of the book, but she does die by suicide as a result of a column that her mom writes that goes viral. And so then the second point of view, so you get her point of view up until her death. And then the second point of view is her best friend a few months after her death. And so it's a book about grief mostly. But it's also a book about, mother-daughter relationships, how really toxic social media can be, but also how social media can bring people together sometimes. So it's a dark one, but I think
sounds great though.
I think it's an important one. I always like to say, I'm like, they're not all sad. Like there are plenty of funny moments, There's lots of joy in there too. And that's the thing about grief is there's you can't just be sad all of the time. Life goes on, and you have to keep living and having fun. So yeah. But yes, so that one is coming out in September of 2022, as long as I get all of my edits done in time. Fingers crossed. So let's see, what else can I ask you? Does anyone have any questions? I'm going to start making you tell us about everything that you've been doing lately during the pandemic. So we've talked about what you're watching and what you're reading. Oh, have you listened to any good music lately?
Oh man, I have a child that's going to be so no. My kids are so into music. I mean, I am too, but I have one son that's going to be upset. I don't have a good answer to that question.
Well, you can, tweet about it or post about it later on Instagram.
All right. Yeah.
I just recently saw this woman, Maggie Rose, who she went to my high school, which is kind of crazy, unexpected. But she calls it Americana. I think it's sort of like a bluesy rock, a little bit country. And she's amazing. Her new album just came out, and I highly recommend everybody go check out Maggie Rose. She's really fun. I just saw her in Annapolis a couple months ago. I'm like, oh, live music.
it's always fun to discover someone new. And
I know. Yeah, I know.
Yeah.
It doesn't, I'm not someone who really seeks out new music very often. So I'm always happy when I have an answer to that question. Did you do anything fun this summer?
So we did, in between kind of the regular COVID and the Delta variant, that small little window where things were opening up again, we went to New York, and that was really fun. Our kids hadn't been, so we went and did a bunch of museums and Central Park and all that fun stuff.
Oh, that's so great.
Fun. Yeah, how about you?
I went to Maine, which was the 45th state that I needed. One of the 40 or the 6 that I hadn't been to, so that was nice. Went to the beach a couple of times in Delaware. Saw Maggie Rose. I think my favorite thing that I did this summer, though, was I saw The Princess Bride at Wolf Trap with the National Symphony Orchestra.
Yeah.
They were like playing the score while it was on, and that was really fun and like a nice like outdoor activity.
Yeah, nice.
Yeah, I'm not outdoorsy, so like that's about as close as I get.
Same. Yeah, that's about my ideal. So where's your favorite place you've traveled, Lizzy?
What?
Where's your favorite? What's the most favorite place you've traveled?
I think the coolest city I've been to is probably either Venice or Prague.
Oh, fun.
I loved both of them. And they just have so much history, and there's just, like you can just see the centuries of history on the walls, literally, What about you?
Probably Paris, which sounds cliche. I thought it totally was. I mean, we went there a couple of years ago and didn't plan very long. It was we planned like 3 days there.
Yeah.
Completely fell in love, and I get it now. All the songs and the books. And
it's a cliche for a reason.
Yeah, but Prague is on my, top 5.
Yeah, I loved it. It was, we did Berlin, Prague, and Vienna, which are all like such really vastly different cities. So that was kind of a cool trip.
Yeah, it's on my wish list for sure.
Yeah. I highly recommend it whenever, travel is allowed again. Addie wants to know what your tips and tricks for world building are.
Oh, good question, Addie. I love Addie. Hi, Addie.
Hi.
Yeah, so that's a good question. I like as I'm building magic systems to try to have things be cohesive and to use the environment. And it takes me a long time to world build. I feel like it comes in layers, with the initial idea and then kind of digging down deeper and deeper. And I have family, all my kids and my husband all read for me and ask annoying questions as wait, how that doesn't make sense, and why would this happen? And it's very annoying at the time, but incredibly helpful in the long run.
Yeah.
So I feel like I do it layer by layer until it kind of feels rich and full. So I guess my advice and my tips and tricks are a lot of revision and time.
Yeah, fair. I mean, it's not easy to build a whole world, and you've done it 3 times now. Well, 4 without the new book you're writing.
Right.
And I'm sure previous books before you got published. Do you want to tell us a little bit about your journey to publication, how you got Business Kiss?
Yeah, so I wrote one book before I got published it got close to getting an agent, but just wasn't quite there. And then the second book I wrote got an agent and a publisher. But it's a long process for anybody, I think. It's a lot of querying, a lot of rejections, and even afterward, then you have to sell it to a publisher. And so it's very straightforward now looking back, but it didn't feel that way at the time.
No, I know. I think the thing people know least about publishing is how long things take.
Everything takes so long. I know. I remember telling people, and they were like, "So when will it be available?" I'm like, a little over 2 years. How about you? What was your publishing story like?
Well, so I wrote my first book it was not great. It was very derivative. It was fantasy. And it did not get me an agent, but it did get me sort of a foot in the door. So when I finished my second book, that was the one. I went back to an agent who was interested in the first book. And I had an agent. We went out on submission and it didn't sell. That one was fantasy too. It was sort of a contemporary fantasy. So then I wrote a third book, which was dystopian, and that was at the end of the dystopian trend. Yeah. So that didn't sell. So then I went and my agent had quit agenting at that point. So then I was agentless. So I really like thought about what do I really love to write? And what I always loved when I was growing up was contemporary. As I said, like I didn't have a fantasy background, like maybe that was part of the problem. So I decided to really just focus on the characters and the story. And that was The Art of Losing, my first book. And that one, had an agent. It took a long time for it to sell to a publisher though. And luckily, Dan and Aaron Hafted Soho was lovely enough to want to publish it. So, yeah. And then Between the Bliss and Me just came out in April. So, haven't really been doing. I mean, I've been writing now for like trying to be published for 12 years, but my first book came out 2 years ago. So, took a while.
Publishing.
Yeah, exactly. Well, in the meantime, I've been working in publishing for long 17 years, something like that, 18 years. So it felt to me like everyone around me was being published. Everybody I know is an author. Like, why isn't this easier? But I think it's important to know that it is not an easy process, and I think it's important. I think writing a book that sits on a shelf or in a drawer or whatever, and doesn't get published is maybe a good thing.
Yeah. I think you learn something from each book, and
yeah, it's good practice.
Takes how long it takes.
Yes. I know. I often tell people to try fan fiction too if they're having trouble writing a book, because you already know those characters, that world has already been built, and you can just kind of play in it. I think it's a really good place to practice. So Amanda wants to know about your love of board games. Do you want to tell us about your favorite board games?
Oh yeah, well, we have so many. We have more than we can ever play all the time. But I love Settlers of Catan. I love Carcassonne. We love just everything: card games, board games, especially like the European board games.
Oh, really?
Yeah, we just love all of them. They're fun. Usually the art's beautiful and the gameplay is really fun. Wingspan we recently got, and that's really fun. It's all about collecting birds, and
it's just so cute.
It's fun. Yeah, and we have some very competitive gameplay. I'm the least competitive, I think, in our family, and I'm pretty competitive. But
so it's a whole family affair. You guys all sit around.
We'll sit around and play, especially holidays and things like that. Yeah, it's fun.
We did have family game night when I was a kid, but I don't know how. I feel like it only lasted a few years, and then my sister and I grew up, and we were like, we're not playing games with you. And then a friend, I recently started playing this game called Ticket to Ride with some friends. Have you played that?
Yes, yeah.
It's very
versions. Yeah.
Nice. It's way more fun than I expected it to be, and I feel like I really missed out. Like in my 20s when I was living in New York, nobody had a kitchen table. Nobody had enough room for more than 3 people in their apartment. So we weren't playing games. We were going out to dinner and things like that. And I'm like, I really feel like I missed out on a really fun and inexpensive part of my 20s that could have been great.
Well, you can tell a lot about people by their strategies and how they play board games. I feel like that's the fastest way to get to know what kind of person you're dealing with. I tend to be really careful and thoughtful and not terribly cutthroat. And then I have a kid who will he's cutthroat and he will destroy you and not even feel sorry about it. But it's kind of an approach to life too. I don't know. I feel like it tells you a lot about a person, how they play board games.
Totally agree.
I recommend that if you're going to date someone, just play a few games first.
That's very good advice.
Yes.
I feel like that should factor into a book somewhere for you.
I know, it really should.
All right, so last chance for everyone to ask you questions, and I'm going to ask you a super trivial final question, which is, what is your favorite ice cream flavor? It's a very important question to me.
Butter pecan, and then a close second would be chocolate chip cookie dough.
Excellent choices.
Yeah. How about you?
Mine used to be mint chocolate chip, but it has to be Baskin-Robbins mint chocolate chip. I'm pretty specific about that. But I recently discovered Tillamook ice cream. I don't know if you're familiar with Tillamook. They have chocolate, they're chocolate and peanut butter. I've always loved chocolate and peanut butter ice cream, but theirs is just incredible. So everyone go buy Tillamook ice cream.
And really good cheese.
Such good cheese.
Yes.
Oh yeah. I'm like, it's a good thing I don't live in Oregon, because I would like be at the Tillamook plant, like eating all the cheese.
Yeah. Yeah, I moved here. I moved to the DC area from Washington, so not too far from Tillamook. Big fan.
Yeah, so good. All right, well, I think that is everything I've got for you.
I'm back. Awesome. Well, I just wanted to hop in to do our little closing remarks, but thank you so much to Breeana and to Lizzy. This has been so fun to listen to. And so fun to hear you share about this exciting new book. I'm so glad I've got my copy that I'm ready to dig into. And congratulations again, Breeana, seriously.
Thank you. Thanks so much.
Yeah, and thank you all to everyone watching. We do these virtual events pretty frequently. We still have some through the fall that are virtual, as well as a couple in person if you're local, and some that are sort of a dual thing. So you can keep an eye on our website and social media for that. I also, in the chat, it's always hard when the screen is smaller to know where my hand actually is. But in the chat, I have posted the link to order copies of Breeana's books, as well as Lizzy's is on there as well. And if you want a personalized copy of the Splendor, Breeana's not coming in for a couple of days to sign. And so you can go ahead and still get personalized copies. And as long as you get those orders in ASAP, we can still get them signed for you. Anything else you guys want to pop in before we head out?
I think so. Thank you for hosting us.
Yes,
of course. Always an absolute delight and a pleasure. Thank you to everyone watching, and have a great night. Bye.
Bye.